You two need to get your shit together. What is up? GoodMicWork back at you with episode 442. Got a lot to get into this week. I'm up here with your Raw and SmackDown reviews for July 10th and 11th, and I'm also going to give you my extensive opinions on the situation between Alberto El Patron and Paige. And I am actually going to open with those thoughts here in just a minute. But before we get into that, quick little programming note, that Q&A that I've been promising for like 3 months, it's done. I'm releasing it this weekend. It'll be up this coming Saturday on my YouTube channel finally. I sincerely apologize for the delay, but it actually works out. My plan originally was to upload this thing on a weekend, and on a weekend where there were no other WWE pay-per-views. So this actually works out great. Check the channel on Saturday, and that commentary will be up. If you're a first-time listener, please subscribe to my channel if you've not yet already, and give that like button a click if you enjoy this video. I've had some pretty decent channel growth in the past couple of weeks. So for all of you new listeners, thank you very much for listening, and please stick around. Follow me on Twitter at GoodMicWork. If you want to hear my up-to-date opinions on everything, like my Facebook page, go to my website, GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com. You can watch this YouTube video over there or download an MP3 version of this commentary, and you can also find me on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. So let's jump right into what we're going to get into tonight. And like I said, I want to begin with the situation and the shit show that is surrounding Alberto El Patron and Paige. Now, these two have been in the news a lot lately. We had that crazy Friday last week, remember, where AJ Styles won the U.S. title in Madison Square Garden. We had Austin Aries released. We had Dixie Carter doing an interview on the WWE Network. And I talked all about that in my Great Balls of Fire reaction video. But one thing I did not mention was some of the issues between Alberto and Paige. Now, we all know that Alberto El Patron won the Global Force Wrestling Championship at the pay-per-view at Slammiversary, where they unified everything and did that whole deal. He beat Lashley. And right after that, he cuts a promo in the ring and he starts talking shit about the WWE. Every time this guy does an interview, he's either drunk or he's talking shit about the WWE. And I've been highly irritated with Alberto El Patron in recent months, and I've made a few comments on him here or there, but I haven't really talked extensively about how ridiculous I find this guy and his relationship with Paige. I've literally lost all respect for Alberto, and I used to like him. I always thought he was a great character in WWE. I thought he was a really good worker, and I thought he was a legit badass. But now with some of the other reports going around about some of the things going on between him and Paige and what kind of a relationship they might have, he might be the lowest form of human there is. And that's kind of disappointing. But before we get to that, a lot of what led up to this is that these two have a very tumultuous relationship. Alberto Del Rio is acting Paige's age. She's 24 and stupid, and, you know, that's just what people that age do. Alberto is 40. He should know better, but instead he's turning into like somebody in his early 20s. And he's going on these drunken rants. He's talking shit about the WWE anytime he gets a chance. He posted that Instagram post over the weekend. And basically he was calling out WWE and Triple H and the Usos because SmackDown, I think, was going to be in San Antonio and he has a restaurant there or some shit like that. And he was basically saying, I'm going to be at my restaurant. I'll be there waiting. If anybody wants to come and have a fight, I'll beat the shit out of you and then buy you a drink after. I mean, what the hell? What kind of 40-year-old man acts like this? Come to my restaurant. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. What are you, 13 years old? Grow the fuck up, dude. Why don't you be happy with the fact that you got away from the WWE and you're having success? You're a champion, for fuck's sake. And you're acting like this, and you're worrying about what the WWE is doing. They don't give a shit about you, so you shouldn't give a shit about them. We've also seen Alberto in drunken Snapchat posts, and what was that one video that him and Paige put up? They were coming back from some event, and Alberto's wasted, and he's talking shit about the WWE, and they're putting it on camera, and then they're posting it on social media. I mean, it's just ridiculous. These two, they're driving me fucking crazy. So then the plot thickens even more. The next day, we get some report of an airport incident between Alberto and Paige and somebody else. Paige starts tweeting out that, yeah, the cops were called, but we're the ones that called the cops. Some crazy woman tried to take my picture, and I'm dealing with a sick relative. She's been posting pictures of her fucking sick uncle all over Twitter, too, trying to get attention and sympathy at this poor man's expense, who has the unfortunate circumstance of being related to Paige. And there was some sort of a shouting match or some sort of an altercation, and Paige immediately comes out on Twitter and defends the situation and says, we called the cops, there was this crazy woman, blah, blah, blah. Well then, TMZ obtains a audio recording of the confrontation. There was somebody else that recorded the whole thing. And apparently there was no third party. The altercation and the argument was between Alberto Del Rio and Paige, which is even crazier because if people are already suspecting that this is some sort of an abusive relationship, why are they arguing in public? You would think they would want to be on their best behavior in public and then they can do all their crazy shit behind closed doors. But they're having some loud argument. These two are already, borderline celebrities. A lot of people know who they are. A lot of people recognize them. And instead of laying low, they're drawing attention to themselves. I mean, it's crazy enough if you have two regular people having an argument in an airport, you're going to be like, what the hell's going on over there? But two people, that have some sort of fame, that's even worse. And they're yelling and screaming at each other. Apparently, Paige threw a drink on him and he got pissed. And in the audio, you can hear Paige saying, I'm trying to get the fuck away from you. Stay out of my life. And you heard Alberto saying, call the cops. Go ahead and call the cops. And you heard no other third voice. So it really looks like Paige is full of shit. And these are the telltale signs. These are the classic examples of an abusive relationship. Because if you look at the two of these nimrods on social media, one minute you're hearing stories that they broke up, and the next minute, Paige is tweeting a picture of Alberto, professing her love and what a great man, and I'm so lucky to have this person in my life, and just professing this undying, disgusting love to the world. When clearly their love is not that strong. And Alberto does the same thing. They were engaged. I don't know if they are anymore. They're breaking up. They're back together. They're breaking up. They're back together. They're making sex tapes with other people. It's just a fucking nightmare. These two are an absolute nightmare. And now there's been reports that Paige has been seen with bruises on her body. And you heard her in the audio saying, I've been trying to get the fuck away from you. So it sounds like Alberto Del Rio is abusive. He might beat Paige for all we know. And here this guy is trying to call out fights with other men when really he's the most cowardly piece of shit you could ever find, beating up a 24-year-old girl. Now, that being said, and while I do not condone domestic violence at all, and if Alberto Del Rio has ever laid a hand on Paige, he deserves to be put in prison and raped. But I cannot ignore that Paige is fucking nuts too. And as much as Alberto might beat her, she might beat him. I mean, who's to say that she's not equally as abusive as Alberto Del Rio? I don't know the full story on this. I'm just freestyling. I'm not claiming to know anything here. I'm just saying that Paige seems just as unstable as Alberto, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's gone nuts and thrown drinks at him, which is apparently what happened in the airport, or hit him or punched him or something. And maybe Alberto tried to restrain as much as he could without hitting her back, and then finally he did, and now the two of them beat each other all the time. Who knows what the fuck is going on? And not to make light of the situation, but has anybody ever seen the YouTube video Hot Crazy Matrix? Just fucking look it up. And remember the line, no woman is less than 4 crazy. Watch that video and you tell me that ain't the most accurate shit you've ever seen. So I'm not absolving either one of these two. I think Alberto and Paige are probably equally guilty in this abusive relationship. Neither one of them have any business touching the other one or hitting the other one or abusing the other one, whether it be physically or mentally or verbally or whatever. This is a very, very toxic relationship that needs to end. These two need an intervention. Somebody has got to come to the two of them and say, you cannot be around each other. You need to file a restraining order on him. He needs to file a restraining order on you, and you guys never need to fucking speak to each other again for the rest of your lives. That's how uncomfortable and unstable this relationship feels to me, and I worry because we're wrestling fans, and we all know the amount of tragedy that we have dealt with in our lives. How many horrible things and how many nightmares have taken place in professional wrestling with people dying or being killed or overdosing on drugs or whatever. And I don't want to see either one of these two lose their lives. I don't want to see Paige go nuts and shoot and kill Alberto. And I don't want to see Alberto go nuts and choke and strangle Paige to death. And I'm really worried that when you combine this toxic relationship with the alcohol and drugs that are probably going on as well, this is scary. And I am really hoping that we don't see headlines even worse than what we've already seen. And this puts Global Force Wrestling in a crazy predicament. The news broke earlier on today that they have suspended Alberto El Patron indefinitely, which was their only option. And boy, does this suck for them, because think about what a simple booking decision could have done to this whole situation at Slammiversary. What if they just would have had Lashley win instead? This would be much easier to deal with. But unfortunately, Alberto is their champion. He's their world champion. Upon this rebranding into Global Force Wrestling, and they're trying to go in the right direction, and they're finally gaining a little bit of momentum. I mean, they still suck, but at least they had a good pay-per-view. At least they're surviving. At least they're, rebranding and attempting to become a successful wrestling company again. And then this happens. They just get kicked right in the balls because this is their champion. And they're a taped show. They got like 4 episodes already done with Alberto as the champion. So yeah, he's suspended indefinitely, but he's still going to be appearing on television for them, for the next month. So maybe if everything comes out and settles and Alberto is totally innocent, they can pick up right where they left off. But I doubt it. It sounds like this relationship with Paige is fucked up. And Global Force Wrestling did the right thing. They better have suspended this motherfucker for some of the rumors that we've been hearing. And until the investigation is concluded, this guy does not need to be on TV. Paige, I guess, has come out on Twitter today. Last time I looked at her Twitter account, she was still defending the situation, which again, when you look at abusive relationships, this is the type of shit that goes down. The crazy fight happens, and then they try to defend each other and try to cover their tracks after the fact. And Paige is still insisting that nothing really happened and Alberto didn't do anything wrong. First, she tweeted out that it was a third party. It was another woman that threw the drink. Now she's saying it was me that threw the drink. So she's full of shit. How are we supposed to know if she's lying or not when she basically just admitted to lying in that tweet? I am so disappointed in both of these two. I really don't want to hear anything more from them again. They need to break up, get the fuck away from each other. Alberto Del Rio needs to be suspended indefinitely. WWE needs to release Paige, and the two of them need to go their separate ways and get their lives back on track. It pisses me off when I see two successful people, two people that are really good at what they do. Alberto was a great wrestler. Paige was a very good wrestler as well for her age. It's in her family. It's in her genes. WWE, pushed her strong upon her entry into NXT and WWE. And she was one of the youngest people to be champions in that company's history. And they just piss it all away by being drunk idiots. So anyway, there you go. Everybody that's been asking me my opinions on Alberto and Paige, that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm sure this is not the last we've heard of these two. I'm sure there will be more headlines tomorrow or the next day. And like I said, hopefully we will not hear anything too disturbing from these two in the future. So let's move on now to Raw and SmackDown. I'm going to briefly kind of recap both of these shows. Raw, of course, was the post-Great Balls of Fire Raw. The show opened up with a long recap of the ambulance match between Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman and everything that went on there. We had Cass come out and hit the ring first, cut a pretty decent promo, vowing that he will be Universal Champion one day, and now that he's annihilated Enzo, he's focused on becoming the man in WWE, and says that nobody can touch him, nobody's as big as him, and basically he's challenged the entire locker room, and out comes the Big Show. Of course the Big Show. We knew that the Big Show was going to be the first guy lined up for Big Cass. He comes out to the ring, starts fighting with Cass, beats him up, and Cass retreats. So we'll get that match first. Cass will beat the Big Show. I'm ready to see Cass get into his character, get rolling as a heel instead of just having these meaningless matches that he's going to win. Pretty okay music, I guess. Quite generic sounding, but it'll probably grow on us. They might tweak it a little bit. But at least he does have new music. And once he kind of gets into this heel character, who knows? Cass could evolve and become a big star one day. On the surface, what I see so far from him, I don't see him being any bigger than he has been currently. I don't know if I see him as world champion unless WWE just randomly starts giving him title shots. I think Cass does need to connect a little bit more with the audience, and I think there is something that he's missing. I just don't know what. Like most guys, he just needs to find his niche, and once he does, I think he'll be fine. We had Finn Balor beating Elias Sampson, which is great. It looks like this thing is over. I was a little bit worried. As much as I like Elias Sampson, I didn't really want to see Finn Balor feud with him. I thought Balor was higher up on the card than that. Sampson's a relative newcomer, and I was worried these two guys were going to work SummerSlam or something like that. It looks like this is probably over. Finn Balor interrupted his song, and then they had a good match, and then Balor beat him. So, good. We had the Hardy Boys come out next. They hobbled to the ring after their brutal Iron Man match the night before with Sheamus and Cesaro that saw Matt Hardy get a huge gash over his eye. His eye looked a little bit black. And they got in the ring and cut a very interesting promo. Now, they are teasing the hell out of us with these broken characters. Jeff says on the mic that people might think they need to fade away and classify themselves as obsolete. And then Matt Hardy says that he has a proclamation, and even though that they are broken from the night before, they are not going anywhere, and they're still going to be the Hardy Boys, and yada, yada, yada. The club then interrupts and cuts a promo on them, calling them old and washed up, which leads to a tag match, and the club beat the Hardys. I can't believe the Hardys even competed on Raw, given the match they had the night before, but they were only at, 50, 60%. Club beat them rather easily. And after the match, the Revival returned and jumped in the ring, and they attacked the Hardy Boys. So the Hardy Boys are just getting their asses kicked left and right here. And that promo was pretty interesting. I mean, Jeff was singing a line from that song, and Matt Hardy actually said broken. He said that they are broken. So they're tickling us. They're teasing us. It's getting a little bit old because they're doing this every single week. I just wish they would work something out and become broken already. Just the way that they're teasing it and the way the WWE is going out there and telling them to tease the fans every single week, has got to mean something, right? Eventually. You got to think we're going to see these characters, and now that they've lost the tag team belts, hopefully they'll be away from the tag team title situation for a while, and they can just, kill some time until they become broken. They're also buddies with Finn Balor. Finn Balor was actually leaving his match with the Drifter when the Hardy Boys came out and joined him on the stage. So imagine the broken characters and the Demon King all together. Imagine that 6-man match. Imagine that feud. What if they want to form a stable? What if the Demon becomes broken? The possibilities are really endless when you start thinking about it in your head and how crazy it could really get if the WWE wanted it to. But I wouldn't just blow off that relationship with the Hardy Boys and Finn Balor. That's got to lead to something in the future, if I had to guess. We had a really stupid Miz segment. I mean, I like the Miz. I think he's a great heel. He's an awesome Intercontinental Champion, but sometimes these segments can get really stupid. This one was called the Mizzies. Yep, that's right, the Mizzies. He was going to give out awards. He was going to give out like 3 or 4 different awards. And basically, the only people that received the awards were him and his entire entourage. He gave Bo Dallas and Kurt Axel a Mizzy for being like best supporting actors. He gave his wife a Mizzy for being the best woman of all time or some shit. And then he gave himself a Mizzy for being the greatest man on earth or something stupid. And then out comes Dean Ambrose. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Dean Ambrose again? Isn't this over? Didn't this not end at Great Balls of Fire? I am so sick and tired of seeing these two feud, especially for the Intercontinental title. They've been doing this shit on 2 shows. Enough is enough. But luckily, that was just a swerve. Just when I was about to lose my shit over this feud, they changed directions and had Dean come out there and interrupt. He gets attacked, and Seth Rollins makes the save because The Miz talked some shit about Seth Rollins in one of his promos or something. And Dean Ambrose and Seth run off the Miz-tourage. And a lot of people were immediately saying, oh my God, Shield reunion. What if Roman joins the group and they take on The Miz and Bo Dallas and Kurt Axel at the next pay-per-view or at SummerSlam? I'm like, no way, that's a mismatch. The Shield would murder those fuckers. I don't think a Shield reunion is something that we're going to see. And backstage after the segment, Dean and Seth have a confrontation. And Dean gets in Seth's face and says, look, this is not going to be a Shield reunion. I don't need your help. And basically is mad that Seth came out there to help him out. And when he walked away, the best part was when Seth was like, okay, geez. I mean, Christ. These Shield guys are supposed to be such badasses. And to watch Dean Ambrose yell at Seth, and instead of Seth getting mad and slapping him in the face, he's like, okay, geez. That was just a really funny line. I got a huge chuckle out of that. So basically, the WWE is squashing any ideas that the fans might have that the Shield will reunite. I think they have to eventually, but right now, probably not. After that, we had Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax taking on Bayley and Sasha. Bayley and Sasha won that match when Bayley pinned Alexa, so Bayley gets a rare victory on Raw. I don't know what that's going to lead to. We had a Goldust promo where he promises a sequel to his big reveal in LA or whatever the fuck it was, and he finally wrestles R-Truth. These two finally have a match after all this time, and he beats him. Nothing really to say there. Hopefully, Goldust can move on and do something of substance if this is going to be his final run and his final push. We had an amazing in-ring segment between Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, Samoa Joe, and Roman Reigns. Kurt Angle came out to the ring first and introduced Brock Lesnar and starts talking about who his next opponent is going to be at SummerSlam. And it was really cool to see Kurt and Brock in the ring together at the same time. I don't remember the last time that we've seen that. Very cool. And Roman Reigns then comes out there and says that he wants that shot, which makes no fucking sense. Why is this guy not in jail? He tried to kill a man the night before. Kurt Angle should be livid. Even if Roman Reigns avoids jail, Kurt Angle should at least suspend him or something. I mean, fuck. James Ellsworth got suspended on SmackDown because he grabbed a briefcase in a women's match. Roman Reigns tries to kill somebody and he's getting a title shot? Excuse me? It's just so funny how logically this makes no sense. I mean, I want to see Roman and Brock and everything, but right now, a title match for Roman Reigns doesn't make any sense. Not only did he try to kill somebody the night before, but he lost that match at the same time. He was a loser at Great Balls of Fire. So how does that entitle him to a crack at the title? And I think even Paul Heyman or Brock Lesnar made mention of that. They're like, dude, you lost. You're not going to get a shot at this belt. And then Samoa Joe comes out to the ring. This time he actually wants to talk. Instead of going nuts and being all intense and attacking people from behind and wanting to fight Brock Lesnar anytime, anywhere, he actually has some things to say this time. And he thinks he should be the one that gets the title shot, because he was the hardest opponent that Brock Lesnar had ever had, and they got in each other's face. I mean, Kurt Angle had to push apart Roman and Brock and Joe and Brock. That was all pretty cool. And Kurt Angle goes on then to make a one-on-one match next week between Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns. The winner will be the number one contender and will face Brock at SummerSlam. So that's the deal. And when you look at it, you got to go with Roman, but I'm hoping that Braun Strowman is not dead yet. And I think maybe next week he makes his presence felt in this one-on-one match. I think Braun Strowman should be the one to get the match, if you ask me. Joe and Roman were losers. Strowman won, and he survived, nearly being killed. I think he's proven that he's tough enough to face Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, and I think that would be a great match. So no matter what they do, I think I'm going to be totally fine with it. One-on-one, I have no problem having Brock Lesnar face Roman Reigns, or Brock Lesnar face Samoa Joe, or Brock Lesnar face Braun Strowman, or have a four-way. There's been a lot of talk about that four-way. Now, next week, if they do Joe versus Roman, and Roman maybe has Joe beat, and then Braun Strowman returns out of nowhere, 2 weeks after being nearly murdered in an ambulance, he comes back and either costs Roman Reigns the match or gets the match thrown out. It's a big double disqualification. And then Kurt Angle comes out there, or whoever the general manager is by this point. We'll talk about that in a minute. Maybe that person comes out and says, okay, here's what we're going to do at SummerSlam. It's going to be a fatal four-way for the WWE title. Brock, you're going to have to take on all three of these guys. And that can put Brock in one of those situations again where you can get the belt off of him without having to beat him. Imagine that. His last two title reigns would be ended by him not being pinned, by somebody else being pinned. And you think Paul Heyman wouldn't shut up about that, so that could keep Brock strong while getting the belt off of him and having the Universal title be a main part of Raw again. We all need that. So I think if they go the four-way route, you gotta have Brock drop it. That's your best chance to have him drop it and remain a monster, and remain huge going into next year's WrestleMania. So I think a four-way is very likely. I think Braun Strowman making a return next week to Raw is very likely. And I don't know if we're necessarily going to get a winner out of that Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe match. But if we are going to get a winner, I kind of got to pick Roman in this because Joe has already beaten him twice. I don't think he's going to beat him a third time. So it seems like the most likely possibilities here are either number one, Roman Reigns just wins this match and goes on to face Brock at SummerSlam, or Braun Strowman runs in and fucks the whole thing up, and we get a multi-man type of deal at SummerSlam. Maybe Braun Strowman does cost Roman the match. That is possible. Because after you try to kill somebody, maybe you have to have one more blow-off match. So I guess it is possible that Strowman and Roman are not done yet. Maybe Strowman comes out, costs Roman Reigns the match, Samoa Joe wins, goes on to face Brock at SummerSlam, and Roman and Strowman have one more go at SummerSlam, maybe in a cage they're probably not going to do a Hell in the Cell because that comes up in October. That actually would be something I wouldn't be opposed to seeing. Is Hell in the Cell a Raw pay-per-view? If it is, I would like to see like Roman and Strowman in the cell for the title and have Strowman win. That would be badass. But let me know what you think. How do you think that match is going to go down next week? Do you see it having a definitive winner, or do you see Strowman coming out and interfering? Do you see a one-on-one match at SummerSlam for Brock, or do you see a multi-man match at SummerSlam for Brock? I'm interested to see what all of you have to say about that. Moving on to the rest of Raw now. Let's see, what else did we have? We had Cedric Alexander and Tozawa beat Noam Dar and Neville in a Cruiserweight tag match. And then in the main event, we had Bray Wyatt defeating Seth Rollins again. They had a rematch from the night before. Seth is selling the injured eye. He had a black eye because Bray thumbed him right in the eye in the pay-per-view. and the eye is really giving him trouble during the match. And he's overselling it. I love Seth. He's awesome in the ring, but man, he was overselling that eye, putting his hand up on his eye. I'm like, okay, we get it. Your eye's hurt. And he really took a beating on that eye in this match. And finally, Bray Wyatt nails him with a headbutt right in the face. Looked pretty good and hit one of the sickest Sister Abigails I've ever seen. Seth took this thing like a boss, and it was awesome. If you didn't see the finish of Raw, just go back and watch that Abigail. It was almost like a DDT. It looked like it killed Seth, and Bray Wyatt got the pin for the victory, so good for him. They were able to give him 2 victories over Seth Rollins because of the eye injury and all of that. And then after the match, after Bray beats him and leaves, out comes the Miz Taraj. Yes, thank God, not only is the feud between The Miz and Dean Ambrose over, but the boring feud between Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt is over, and Bray Wyatt came out on top of it. I couldn't be happier, and now they're probably going to put the Intercontinental title on Seth Rollins. I've been waiting for this perfect Intercontinental Champion. I love Miz as Intercontinental Champion as a heel, but as far as the baby faces go, Dean Ambrose never did anything for me. But for Seth to become Intercontinental Champion, I think will be great. It'll give him something to do. We have 4 behemoths right now mixed up in the world title picture, so there's really not room for Seth or Finn Balor or anybody like that. So the fact that Seth is going to be feuding with The Miz now is awesome. The Miz Taraj shows up and attacks him and beats him up after the match, and Dean Ambrose does actually come out to make the save. He does come out and help Seth Rollins and goes to town on The Miz with a chair. So really, maybe their issue is not totally over, but as far as who's getting the next shot at the Intercontinental title, I think it's going to be Seth. I wouldn't even be surprised at all if they do a one-on-one match between Seth and Dean for the number 1 contender spot for Miz's championship. They might do that first, but eventually I think it's going to wind up being Seth Rollins getting the title shot against The Miz at SummerSlam, and I hope he beats him. And the final thing I'll mention about Raw, of course, is the situation surrounding Kurt Angle. Now, we remember in previous weeks, Kurt Angle has been receiving some sort of text messages, or Corey Graves has, and he's been bringing it to Kurt Angle's attention. Apparently, there's something out there on him. There's some sort of dirt that can cost him his job, and they reinforced that on Raw. Corey Graves went backstage earlier on in the show to talk to Kurt Angle, and Kurt Angle says next week all of this is going to be exposed or whatever. And then after the Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins main event, the show ends with a backstage shot of Kurt Angle talking on the phone to somebody, and he's saying, why don't you come to Raw next week and we'll tell the whole world together. We have nothing to be ashamed of. I'm proud of you. Tells whoever this person is that he loves them, and says that they'll tell the entire world next week on Raw together. So whatever is going on with these text messages, apparently we're going to find out next week. And it could be anything, but I think we know what it is. It's probably Stephanie related. I mean, we've heard the rumors of Triple H getting back in the ring, possibly having a match with Kurt Angle at SummerSlam. This seems like the perfect way to lead to all of that. And maybe it comes out that Kurt Angle had an affair with Stephanie McMahon years ago, because they did have a thing. Remember? Kurt Angle and Triple H's feud was about Stephanie. Kurt Angle kissed Stephanie and she liked it, and she used to have the hots for him, and it used to drive Triple H nuts. They even had a pay-per-view match or two over the whole thing, so it would make sense that Kurt Angle and Stephanie maybe had a fling years ago. Some people are even saying Dixie Carter. I think that would be extremely far-fetched. It was cool to have her on the WWE Network for an interview, but I mean, a lot of WWE fans, they don't know much about Dixie Carter, so she's not going to be some huge bombshell that everybody's going to freak out over. I think Stephanie, in WWE's heads, would make a lot more sense. I suppose there's a chance it could not be Stephanie and WWE could do something fun and swerve-us, but I don't know who it would be. I mean, who could he be talking to? What we know of this situation so far is that whatever this is freaking out Kurt Angle. Whatever this is damaging enough to cost him his career and something that he cannot come back from. So what other scenario would there be other than Stephanie McMahon? And the weirdest part about this is the way he said, "I love you," which makes me think that him and Stephanie are still having the affair. I mean, if this was an affair that took place 15 years ago, why would Kurt Angle say, "I love you and I'm proud of you"? So there's a really good chance that this could not be Stephanie, but maybe it's more current. Maybe the affair between Kurt and Stephanie didn't take place 15 years ago. Maybe it took place when he came back to the WWE at WrestleMania or something. And maybe they've been having a secret affair ever since. But then I don't know why he would say, "I'm proud of you." I just don't know. So it might be somebody from Kurt Angle's past. It might be somebody we're not even thinking of. But right now, just all signs kind of point to Stephanie, because if Kurt's going to have a match at SummerSlam or at all, it seems like Triple H would be a likely opponent for him. Other than that, I really don't know what this could be about. I've been racking my brain trying to think of different scenarios of what this could be, and I just can't think of anything outside of Stephanie McMahon. So I guess we'll find out next week. Should be really interesting, and give me all your thoughts and ideas and speculation who you think this might be and what the hell you think they might be doing. And speaking of Kurt Angle, I did catch the WWE 24 special they had on him. It was an hour long on the WWE Network. It aired after Raw. Really good. I love the Seth Rollins one. I love the Finn Balor one, and this one was equally as entertaining. And the Dixie Carter interview, my God. I still can't believe that they had Dixie on there. And she came off well. She came off very professional, very mature, and it was kind of cool to see her on there as a former competitor and somebody that worked so hard against WWE for so long. And really, Kurt Angle worked for her longer than he did for Vince, so she had every right to be on there, and it's cool that the WWE thought enough of having her on there and saying a few words. But very good special. If you guys have not checked it out, please do. It's well worth an hour of your time, and it was really well done. Let's move on to SmackDown now. Now, SmackDown opened up with highlights of AJ Styles winning the United States title at that house show at Madison Square Garden over the weekend. AJ comes out to the ring first, sporting the U.S. belt. He's got a red, white, and blue AJ Styles t-shirt now. His whole outfit and the whole look great with the title. And he got on the mic and says that he's the champ now, and he put over John Cena. He goes, once upon a time, there was a proud U.S. champion that took on all comers, and he had something called a U.S. Open Challenge, and I think it's time to bring that back. So basically, he's vowing to be just as fighting of a champion as John Cena was. And John Cena then comes out. His music hits. He comes out to the ring. The crowd pops like crazy. He gets on the mic and he goes, hey, if you're offering an open challenge, you know what that means. You got to face me, and I want a shot at that title right now. And AJ's like, fine, let's do it. Get a referee out here. They're just about to have the match, and Kevin Owens interrupts. Talks a bunch of shit to AJ Styles and Cena. Cena talks shit back to him. Rusev then hits the ring and hits John Cena with a super kick. Owens then nails AJ Styles from behind and hits him with a pop-up powerbomb, and that's going to lead to a tag team main event, AJ Styles and John Cena versus Rusev and Kevin Owens. Backstage, we see AJ Styles and John Cena talking. They agree to have each other's backs. Looks like there's some respect there. And they go out and have a pretty decent main event with Rusev and Kevin Owens. John Cena pins Kevin Owens with the AA for the win. And AJ and Cena stand hand in hand victorious together. So I kind of like, after all that these two have been through, feuding over the world title and exchanging victories back and forth, now there's that, there's that show respect and they're putting each other over. Hopefully, they won't have another match for the U.S. title. Hopefully, AJ and Kevin Owens will continue their thing. They are working Battleground. Hopefully, they'll work one more. So maybe after that, you get a three-way for the U.S. belt between Cena, AJ, and Owens or something like that at SummerSlam. I don't know. Or maybe John Cena moves over to Raw and feuds with somebody over there. Whatever they do, I just hope they plan on keeping that belt around AJ's waist for a little while. Much like on Raw, whenever Seth Rollins winds up winning the Intercontinental title, I kind of want him to hold it for 6 months. And I think AJ holding on to the U.S. belt for the same amount of time will do that belt some good. And both brands can have really good and really credible U.S. and Intercontinental champions. That's kind of what I want to see. So the longer AJ's run lasts, the better, in my opinion. We also had Jinder Mahal beating Ty Dillinger in a one-on-one match. He cut a promo on Randy Orton after the match, hyping their big Punjabi prison showdown at Battleground. And I would like to thank loyal listener Ricky Sanchez. You can find him on Twitter at @NotRickySanchez. He took a GoodMicWork sign in the audience, and it was shown on camera during Jinder Mahal's promo. Now, Ricky has done this once before. He was in San Antonio for the NXT TakeOver show, I think before the Royal Rumble, and took a sign to that show as well. And Ricky, as a matter of fact, I answered one of your questions in my Q&A, and I made mention to the fact that you brought the sign to that NXT TakeOver show. Unfortunately, I've already recorded that question, so I did not give you credit in the Q&A for taking the sign to this week's SmackDown, so I'm giving you credit here. Thank you very, very much. I got a couple of screenshots of it on my Twitter page, and it was awesome. So anytime any of you guys take a GoodMicWork sign to a show and it gets on camera, I am immensely grateful. That is awesome. I also saw another tweet. This account follows me. It's called What a Maneuver, and they tweeted a picture of the GoodMicWork sign, but I think they took it out of context. Jinder Mahal had just got done speaking, and that's when Ricky lifts up the GoodMicWork sign, and I think that they thought that there's a fan in the audience thinking Jinder has GoodMicWork without knowing it's just somebody plugging my channel, so that was kind of funny. We also had Shane McMahon making a fatal five-way, or is it a five-way elimination? I think it might be a five-way elimination at Battleground with all the girls. The winner will become the #1 contender and get a shot at Naomi at SummerSlam. So I guess it's going to be Becky, Charlotte, Natty, Tamina, and Lana. He also made a tag match later that night with Tamina and Natty defeating Charlotte and Becky. So the whole women's situation is a mess there. Naomi is just waiting for an opponent. And Carmella, of course, has the briefcase, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if she winds up cashing that thing in at SummerSlam, especially if James Ellsworth's suspension is up. We were supposed to have a match between Shinsuke Nakamura and Baron Corbin. It never got underway. Shinsuke paid Baron Corbin back for attacking him last week, and while Corbin is making his entrance, Shinsuke jumps out of the ring and attacks him. They start brawling into the crowd. A bunch of officials come out there and pull him apart, and the match never happens. So we're going to get that one at Battleground. Xavier Woods beat Jey Uso in a one-on-one match to add hype to their tag team title match. And aside from that, we just had a couple of backstage segments. We had Maria walking around looking for Sami Zayn. It was really funny when she knocked on the men's locker room door and Chad Gable answered, and he called Sammy Wow Wow. That was pretty funny. Gable's kind of an interesting cat, and I think that maybe he could have a singles run in the future because he's been featured a little bit in one-on-one matches on SmackDown, and now we're getting to see him, you know, in some backstage segments here or there and kind of getting an idea for his personality, and I kind of like him so far. Maria and Mike are eventually later on in the back kissing and staring at each other, and Sammy approaches them, and then Maria slaps him in the face, and then Mike breaks a vase full of flowers over Sami Zayn's head. So Sammy and Mike are clearly going to have a one-on-one feud there. We'll probably get that match at Battleground most likely. And a really funny segment with Breezango and Zack Ryder and Mojo Rawley. Breezango's trying to figure out who attacked Tyler that one week, and now they're dressed as little cowboys, and they got a little fake horse. Reminds me of Pepe that Chavo Guerrero used to have in WCW. And then they see Zack Ryder, and Fandango goes over there to question him, and then Tyler Breeze is supposed to lasso him, and the whole thing falls apart. Mojo Rawley interrupts. He's like, what the fuck is going on here? We wouldn't do anything shady like that. And they teased more dissension between Zack and Mojo and their eventual breakup that is inevitable at this point. And then when the whole segment is over and everybody walks away, the horse that Fandango rode into the backstage area was gone. It was missing. And apparently ghost aliens stole the horse. So very funny stuff. I never get tired of seeing Tyler Breeze and Fandango in these backstage segments. They are pretty goddamn entertaining, if you ask me. But anyway, that's your SmackDown in a nutshell. SmackDown and Raw, both decent shows this week. I probably liked Raw a little bit better just because more things took place. I love the big in-ring segment between Kurt and Brock and Roman and Joe, and the fact that we're going to get a big angle revealed to us next week as it pertains to Kurt Angle and Corey Graves. So Raw felt like it had a little bit more going on, and I still wouldn't rule out Corey Graves becoming the GM. I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. This could maybe lead to that. Maybe Corey Graves is in on this somehow. Maybe he has an alternate agenda for being such a part of this, and maybe, just maybe, it leads to Corey Graves becoming the general manager sometime in the future. I really would have no problem with that. I think the guy's good, but you know, that whole situation should be pretty interesting next week on Raw, and I can't wait to see what all this shit leads to. But as far as everything else goes, real quick, Battleground, the matches that I have kind of jotted down so far that we're most likely going to see. We've got Orton versus Jinder, Punjabi Prison match, AJ versus Kevin Owens for the U.S. title, Usos versus the New Day for the tag team titles, Shinsuke Nakamura taking on Baron Corbin, a women's 5-way #1 contender match, also John Cena taking on Rusev in the flag match, and we're probably going to get Sami Zayn and Mike Bennett, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a Breezango kickoff match either. So that's the way Battleground is shaping up for right now. So yeah, that's it for me for this week. Like I said at the beginning of the video, check back on Saturday. My new Q&A will be up. It's a couple of hours long. It was a lot of fun. So you'll be able to check out some new content on the channel this weekend. And yeah, other than that, I'll be back next week with another Raw and SmackDown review. And we'll discuss at length whatever's going on with this Kurt Angle text message situation on Monday Night Raw. So you guys take care. Have a great rest of your week. And I will talk to you on Saturday. Until then, peace.